The team was crushing it, until a Deathworld girl appeared unstoppable. The Galactic Champions League arena buzzed with energy as thousands of spectators filled the massive dome. Beings from across the galaxy had gathered to watch what many considered the most dominant team in recent history. The Apex Predators had won 47 consecutive matches, breaking records that had stood for centuries. Captain Vexter of the Cathurian Empire stood at the team's command center, his four arms moving with practiced precision across the holographic displays. His metallic exoskeleton gleamed under the arena lights, and his compound eyes tracked multiple data streams simultaneously. The Cathurians were known throughout the galaxy as master strategists, their minds capable of processing thousands of variables in real time. "Final systems check," Vexter announced, his voice carrying the harmonic undertones typical of his species. "Zarath weapon systems." The massive Gorlaxian warrior grunted his approval. Standing nearly 3 meters tall, Zarath's rock-like skin was scarred from countless battles. His people had evolved on a high-gravity world where only the strongest survived. Each of his punches could shatter reinforced steel, and his hide could deflect most energy weapons. He hefted his plasma cannon, a weapon so heavy that most species would need mechanical assistance just to lift it. "All green, Captain," rumbled Zarath, his voice like grinding stone. "Ready to crush these newcomers." Next to him, Nithara's serpentine form coiled and uncoiled in anticipation. The Salarian's scales shifted color from deep purple to electric blue, indicating her excitement. Her species had dominated the stealth divisions of galactic warfare for millennia, their ability to phase in and out of visible light making them nearly impossible to track. Combined with their lightning-fast reflexes and venomous fangs, they were perfect assassins. "Cloaking systems optimal," she hissed, her forked tongue tasting the air. "These humans won't see me coming." The fourth member of their team was perhaps the most feared. Cathul belonged to a species that most galactic citizens preferred not to think about. The Void Walkers existed partially outside normal space-time, their consciousness spanning multiple dimensions simultaneously. Cathul appeared as a shifting mass of dark energy roughly humanoid in shape, with tendrils of shadow that seemed to absorb light itself. When Cathul spoke, reality seemed to bend slightly around the words. "The probability matrices favor us completely," Cathul intoned, its voice seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Victory is mathematically certain." Vexter allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. His team was perfect. Zarath provided overwhelming firepower and defense. Nithara handled reconnaissance and elimination of key targets. Cathul manipulated probability itself, turning luck into a weapon. And Vexter coordinated it all with strategic brilliance honed over decades of warfare. They had never faced a human team before, but Vexter had studied the species extensively. Humans came from what the galaxy classified as a Deathworld, a planet so hostile that most species couldn't survive there for more than a few hours. But humans were young, barely having achieved interstellar travel a few decades ago. Their technology was primitive, their tactics simple, and their physical capabilities laughably inferior to established galactic powers. The arena announcer's voice boomed across the stadium in dozens of languages simultaneously, thanks to universal translators. "Ladies, gentlemen, and non-binary beings of all species, welcome to Championship Match 48 for the legendary Apex Predators." The crowd erupted in cheers. The Apex Predators were celebrities throughout the galaxy. Their merchandise sold on thousands of worlds. Children of dozens of species wore their team colors and practiced their signature moves. Facing them today, we have the newcomers from the Sol system, Team Earth. The cheers turned to polite applause mixed with curious murmurs. Most of the audience had never seen humans in person before. Some had heard stories about the Deathworld species, but few took them seriously. Vexter activated his team's communication channel. "Remember, we need to make this look competitive for the viewers. Don't end it too quickly." His teammates acknowledged with various sounds and gestures. They had done this many times before. New species would challenge them, full of hope and determination, only to be systematically dismantled by superior strategy and overwhelming power. The human team emerged from their preparation chamber, and Vexter got his first good look at them. They were indeed small and fragile-looking compared to his teammates. The tallest barely reached Zarath's waist. Their skin looked soft and easily damaged. No natural armor, no visible weapons, no obvious evolutionary advantages. Three humans walked onto the arena floor. Two males and one female, all wearing simple combat gear that looked almost primitive compared to the advanced equipment used by most galactic species. The male in front appeared to be their leader, average height, brown hair, carrying what looked like modified human military equipment. His movements were confident but not particularly impressive. The second male was smaller, clearly focused on technical equipment. He carried various devices that Vexter's scanners identified as human-built computers and sensors, primitive by galactic standards, but functional enough for basic tactical support. But it was the third human that caught Vexter's attention. The female was smaller than both of her teammates, with dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. She carried no weapons that his scanners could detect, no armor heavier than basic protective gear. She looked around the arena with calm interest, as if she were sightseeing rather than preparing for combat. Something about her made Vexter's tactical instincts twitch, though he couldn't identify why. Perhaps it was the way she moved, not with the careful precision of a trained warrior, but with a casual ease that suggested movement was as natural as breathing. Or maybe it was her eyes, which seemed to take in every detail of the arena without appearing to look at anything in particular. "Captain," Zareth rumbled over the comm channel, "should we be concerned about any of them?" Vexter quickly reviewed the intelligence reports on human capabilities. Strong for their size, but still weak compared to most galactic species. Fast reflexes, but nothing extraordinary. Decent problem-solving abilities, though limited by primitive technology. The reports mentioned something about humans having unusual adaptability and persistence, but those seemed like minor advantages at best. "Negative," Vexter replied. "Maintain standard formation. Cathul, begin probability manipulation on my mark. Nithara, locate their leader and prepare for elimination. Zarath, suppression fire on the technical specialist." The arena's central AI began the final countdown. "Combatants prepare for engagement. Match begins in 10, 9, 8. Vexter ran through the plan one more time. They would demonstrate overwhelming force immediately, crush human morale, then finish the match quickly but with enough style to entertain the audience. Simple, effective, and proven. 3, 2, 1, begin. The arena floor transformed instantly as combat protocols activated. Cover positions materialized from the smart matter flooring, elevation changes created tactical advantages, and the boundaries of the combat zone were clearly marked by energy barriers. Vexter immediately began coordinating his team's assault. Execute Pattern 7, Nithara, stealth approach, Cathul, probability cascade on their equipment, Zarath, advance with suppression. His teammates moved with practiced efficiency. Nithara vanished from sight, her cloaking technology rendering her invisible across multiple spectrums. Cathul's dark form began to pulse with otherworldly energy as he reached across dimensional barriers to manipulate probability itself. Zarath charged forward, his massive frame shaking the arena floor with each step as his plasma cannon powered up. The human team's response was unexpected. Instead of taking cover or forming a defensive position, as most teams did when faced with the apex predator's opening assault, the humans simply spread out. The leader and technical specialist took positions that provided good sight lines across the arena. But the female human did something that made no tactical sense whatsoever. She started running directly toward Zarath. Not toward cover near Zarath, not to flank him or set up a coordinated attack. She just ran straight at a 3-meter-tall alien warrior who could punch through battle armor and was currently charging up a weapon that could vaporize a small building. "Captain," Zarath's voice carried surprise along with amusement. "The small human female appears to be attacking me directly." Vexter quickly checked his tactical displays. Sure enough, the human female was closing distance with Zarath at a full sprint. His analysis software couldn't even calculate effective attack vectors for her. She was too small and too lightly armed to pose any threat to the massive Gorlaxian. "Ignore her," Vexter ordered. "Focus fire on the primary targets. She's either confused or attempting a distraction." Zarath's plasma cannon reached full charge, and he triggered the first shot. The bolt of superheated energy screamed across the arena toward the human leader. It should have ended the match immediately. Instead, something impossible happened. The human female, still running toward Zarath, somehow changed direction in mid-stride without slowing down. Not a normal direction change. She seemed to twist through space in a way that shouldn't have been physically possible, moving from one trajectory to a completely different one while maintaining the same speed. She arrived at Zarath's position just as his plasma bolt reached where the human leader had been standing. The leader was no longer there, having somehow anticipated and dodged an energy weapon moving at near light speed. What happened next would replay in slow motion on sports networks across the galaxy for years to come. The human female leaped at Zarath. Not a tackle or a flying kick, just a simple jump that carried her to approximately the height of Zarath's center of mass. In midair, she reached out and touched the Gorlaxian warrior's chest with the palm of one small hand. Zarath, 3 meters tall and weighing approximately 800 kilograms of solid muscle and bone-like structure, flew backward through the air as if he had been struck by a freight train. He crashed into the arena wall with enough force to crack the reinforced smart matter, then slid down to lie motionless on the arena floor. His plasma cannon clattered away, its charge dissipating harmlessly. The arena fell completely silent. Vexter stared at his tactical display, trying to process what had just happened. According to every sensor in the arena, the human female had just struck Zarath with approximately 40,000 kilograms of force. That was impossible. Even accounting for some unknown human technology, the physics simply didn't work. The small human should have been liquefied by the recoil of generating that much kinetic energy. Instead, she landed gracefully on her feet and looked around as if nothing unusual had happened. "Zarath, report," Vexter commanded, his voice tight with disbelief. Static answered him. Zarath's biosigns showed he was unconscious but stable. The Gorlaxian warrior, who had never been knocked down in 47 professional matches, was out of the fight. "K-Thull," Vexter snapped. "Maximum probability manipulation. Ensure their weapons malfunction." "Attempting compliance," K-Thull replied, but there was uncertainty in the Void Walker's multi-dimensional voice. "The probability streams around the female human are unusual. They do not respond to manipulation as expected." Across the arena, the human technical specialist was setting up some kind of scanning equipment while the leader provided cover. But the female had started moving again, this time toward Nithara's last known position. That should have been impossible. S-Salarian cloaking technology was perfect. Even species with enhanced sensory capabilities couldn't track a properly stealthed S-Salarian. The human female walked confidently to a spot that appeared completely empty and said something. Vexter's audio pickups caught her words clearly. "Hello there. Nice camouflage, but you're breathing heavily." Nithara's stealth field flickered and failed as the S-Salarian assassin recoiled in shock. Her scales shifted to the bright yellow of fear as she realized she had somehow been detected. "Impossible," Nithara hissed, raising her energy blade. "No mammalian species can detect S-Salarian stealth." The human female shrugged. "I couldn't see you. I could smell you, though. Also, you were shifting your weight every few seconds. The floor vibrations were pretty obvious once I started paying attention." Nithara struck with the speed that made her species legendary assassins. Her energy blade moved faster than most beings could even perceive, cutting through the air toward the human's neck. The human female tilted her head slightly to the left. The blade passed harmlessly through empty air, as the human somehow moved just enough to avoid the strike without appearing to exert any effort. Nithara followed up with a combination attack that should have been impossible to dodge. 12 precision strikes delivered simultaneously from multiple angles, utilizing her species' flexible bone structure to attack from positions no other species could achieve. The human female seemed to dance between the attacks, moving with fluid grace that made it look like the deadly strikes were part of some elaborate performance rather than combat. She never moved more than necessary, never wasted motion, and never appeared to be hurrying. When Nithara's combination ended, the human female reached out and gently tapped the S-Salarian on the forehead with one finger. Nithara collapsed instantly, her nervous system shutting down from some kind of precise pressure point strike that shouldn't have been possible for a species without detailed knowledge of S-Salarian physiology. Vexter found himself backing away from his control station, all 4 of his arms working frantically to process what he was seeing. 2 of his teammates were down, eliminated by a single human female who appeared to be barely trying. K-Thul, he commanded, direct assault, maximum dimensional displacement. K-Thul's form began to shift and expand as the Void Walker prepared to bring its full power to bear. Reality warped around the creature as it reached across multiple dimensions to access energies that existed outside normal spacetime. The human female looked at K-Thul with mild interest, then started walking toward the Void Walker. K-Thul unleashed forces that bent space itself, creating gravitational anomalies and temporal distortions that should have torn the human apart at the molecular level. Dimensional rifts opened in the air around her, each one containing enough exotic energy to annihilate a small spacecraft. The human female continued walking forward, as if she were taking a leisurely stroll through a park. The dimensional attacks simply missed, not through dodging or deflection, but as if the universe itself was gently redirecting them away from her. Spacetime warped and twisted around her presence, but she remained completely unaffected. When she reached K-Thul, she looked up at the towering mass of dark energy and shadow. "You know," she said conversationally, "I've always wondered what would happen if someone tried to grab hold of a multidimensional being and force them to exist entirely in normal spacetime." Before K-Thul could respond, she reached out and somehow took hold of the Void Walker's essence. Her hands passed into the creature's shadowy form and grasped something fundamental about its existence. K-Thul's scream echoed across multiple dimensions as the human female pulled the Void Walker completely into normal reality. The creature's distributed consciousness was suddenly forced into a single-dimensional framework, causing a feedback loop that shut down its higher functions. K-Thul collapsed, its form solidifying into something that looked almost like a very large, unconscious bat. The arena remained in stunned silence as the human female dusted off her hands and looked around for any remaining threats. Vexter stood alone on the arena floor, all four of his arms trembling slightly as he processed the complete destruction of his team. 47 consecutive victories, decades of tactical superiority, years of careful team building and strategic development. All eliminated in less than 5 minutes by a single human female who didn't even appear to be breathing heavily. She looked at him across the arena floor and smiled. It was a friendly smile, the kind someone might give when meeting a new neighbor. "So," she called out cheerfully, "do you want to surrender, or would you like to see what else I can do?" Vexter's compound eyes analyzed every aspect of her stance, her equipment, her apparent capabilities. His tactical computer ran through thousands of possible scenarios and strategies. Every analysis came back with the same result, probability of victory approaching 0. For the first time in his professional career, Captain Vexter of the Cathurian Empire reached for the surrender beacon. As he activated the device that would officially end the match, one thought dominated his mind. What kind of Deathworld produced beings like this? The human female nodded approvingly as the surrender signal registered. "Good choice," she said. "I'm Sarah, by the way, Sarah Chen. It was nice meeting you all." As medical teams rushed onto the arena floor to check on his unconscious teammates, Vexter realized that the galaxy's understanding of human capabilities might need some significant revision. The crowd began to cheer, slowly at first, then building to a thunderous roar as they realized they had just witnessed the end of the Apex Predator's legendary winning streak. And somewhere in the human team's preparation area, Sarah Chen was probably wondering what all the fuss was about. The team was crushing it, until a Deathworld girl appeared unstoppable. The victory celebration in the human team's quarters was surprisingly quiet. While the rest of the galaxy was buzzing with shock and excitement over the Apex Predator's first defeat in nearly 2 years, Team Earth seemed almost subdued. Marcus Webb, the team leader, sat at the small table reviewing match footage on his tablet. His military background showed in his precise movements and constant tactical awareness, but right now he looked more confused than victorious. "I still don't understand what happened out there," he said, running a hand through his short brown hair. "Sarah, when you hit that Gorlaxian guy." "Zarath," supplied Tommy Park from his position surrounded by computer equipment. The team's technical specialist was busy analyzing sensor data from the match, his multiple screens displaying readings that made no sense according to known physics. "Right, Zarath. When you hit him, my combat analysis software recorded an impact force of 40,000 kilograms. That's impossible for someone your size. Hell, that's impossible for someone 3 times your size without some kind of powered exoskeleton. Sarah Chen looked up from the energy bar she was eating. Was it really that much? I wasn't trying to hit him that hard. I just wanted to knock him down so he'd stop shooting at you guys. Tommy's head snapped up from his screens. You weren't trying. Sarah, you sent an 800-kilogram alien warrior flying across the arena like he was a tennis ball. Well, yeah, but I held back. I didn't want to hurt him too badly. Sarah finished her energy bar and crumpled the wrapper. He seemed nice enough, just doing his job. Marcus and Tommy exchanged glances. They had known Sarah for 3 months now, ever since she had somehow qualified for the team despite having no formal combat training and no previous experience with galactic sports. Her application had been accompanied by letters of recommendation that read like fiction, stories about her stopping runaway vehicles with her bare hands, catching bullets, and once reportedly arm wrestling a grizzly bear to settle a territorial dispute. They had assumed the stories were exaggerated. Earth's military and scientific communities were notorious for tall tales about exceptional individuals. But after today's match, Sarah, Marcus said carefully, we need to talk about your background. When you applied for the team, you said you were from rural Montana and worked as a wilderness guide. But what you did out there today, that's not normal human capability. Sarah tilted her head slightly, considering his words. Define normal. Normal humans can't punch through armor plating, Tommy said, pulling up more sensor readings. Normal humans can't move fast enough to dodge energy weapons, and normal humans definitely can't grab hold of multidimensional beings and force them into regular spacetime. Oh, that last one is just a matter of understanding how dimensional barriers work, Sarah said dismissively. It's not that complicated once you get the hang of it. Marcus felt a headache building. Sarah, how exactly do you understand how dimensional barriers work? That's theoretical physics that most species haven't even begun to explore. I read about it. Sarah's response was so matter-of-fact that it somehow made the situation even more surreal. You read about it? Marcus repeated slowly. Sure, there's a whole section on multidimensional theory in the galactic database. It's actually pretty interesting once you get past all the mathematical notation. The key insight is that consciousness itself has dimensional properties, so if you can extend your awareness across multiple dimensional frameworks, you can interact with beings that exist partially outside normal space-time. Tommy's mouth fell open. Sarah, that's graduate-level xenophysics from the University of Centauri Prime. It takes most beings years of study to even understand the basic concepts. Really, it seemed pretty straightforward to me. Sarah paused, thinking, although I guess growing up on Earth might have given me some advantages. What kind of advantages? Marcus asked, though he was beginning to suspect he didn't want to know the answer. Well, Earth is what the rest of the galaxy calls a Deathworld, right? That means everything there is constantly trying to kill you. After a while, you develop certain adaptations. Marcus had read the reports about Earth's classification as a Deathworld. The planet was considered so hostile that galactic insurance companies refused to cover visits there. The gravity was too high, the atmosphere was corrosive, the weather patterns were violently unpredictable, and the native life forms were universally aggressive. Adaptations like superhuman strength? He asked. Not superhuman, Sarah corrected. Just human. You guys are from the colonies, right? Mars, Europa, places like that. Marcus nodded. He had been born on Mars, in one of the dome cities where gravity was carefully controlled, and the environment was completely safe and predictable. Colony worlds are designed to be comfortable for humans, Sarah continued. Controlled gravity, perfect climate, no dangerous wildlife. But Earth isn't like that. On Earth, if you're not strong enough, fast enough, and smart enough to deal with whatever wants to eat you, you die. Simple as that. But the galactic databases say that baseline humans have specific physical limitations, Tommy protested. Maximum safe gravity tolerance, reflexive response times, cognitive processing speeds. What you did today exceeds every one of those parameters. Sarah shrugged. Database information is based on studies of colony-born humans. Maybe Earth-born humans are a little different. A soft chime indicated someone was requesting entry to their quarters. Marcus activated the door control, and Admiral Janet Harrison stepped into the room. The head of Earth's galactic sports program was a stern woman in her 60s who had spent most of her career in Earth's deep space navy. "Congratulations on your victory," she said without preamble. "Now we need to talk about the consequences." "Consequences?" Marcus asked. "The Galactic Sports Authority has officially lodged a complaint questioning the legitimacy of your team," Admiral Harrison said, taking a seat at their small table. "Specifically, they're claiming that Sarah's capabilities exceed normal human parameters and should be classified as technological enhancement." "That's ridiculous," Tommy said. "Our medical scans show she's completely baseline human. No cybernetics, no genetic modifications, no performance-enhancing substances." "I know that, and you know that, but the GSA is under enormous pressure from the other teams. The Apex Predators were undefeated for 47 matches. They had corporate sponsorships worth billions of credits. Their defeat has sent shockwaves through the entire galactic sports industry." Admiral Harrison activated a holographic display showing news feeds from across the galaxy. Headlines in dozens of languages all focused on the same story: the impossible humans who had defeated the champions. "More importantly," she continued, "we're getting inquiries from military organizations. Several galactic powers want to know if Earth has been hiding enhanced soldiers in our civilian population." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. Enhanced soldiers. From their perspective, what Sarah did today looks like the kind of capabilities you'd expect from elite military enhancement programs. Super strength, enhanced reflexes, tactical precognition, dimensional manipulation. These are all things that various species have tried to develop for their special forces. "But I'm not enhanced," Sarah protested. "I'm just me." "That's what makes this situation so complicated," Admiral Harrison said. "If you were enhanced, we could explain you. But if you're really just a baseline human from Earth, then it means our entire species might have capabilities that we've been hiding or haven't properly understood." Tommy was frantically typing on his computer. "Admiral, I'm looking at the genetic diversity studies for Earth-born versus colony-born humans. There are some interesting patterns here." "Such as?" "Colony worlds were settled by relatively small populations, usually a few thousand families per world. That creates genetic bottlenecks. But Earth's population never went through those bottlenecks. Plus, Earth-born humans have been dealing with environmental stresses that simply don't exist on colony worlds." "You're talking about evolutionary adaptation," Marcus realized. "More than that," Tommy said excitedly. "I'm talking about active genetic expression. On Earth, humans who couldn't adapt to extreme conditions died. On colony worlds, humans who couldn't adapt were protected by technology. Over just a few generations, that could create significant differences in average capabilities." Admiral Harrison looked thoughtful. "How significant?" "Based on these preliminary calculations, potentially very significant. Sarah might not be unusually strong for an Earth-born human. She might be typical." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. If Sarah represented normal capabilities for Earth-born humans, then the galaxy's understanding of human potential was completely wrong. "There's something else," Admiral Harrison said quietly. "We've been monitoring communications intercepts from several galactic powers. The Cathurian Empire is mobilizing what they're calling an assessment fleet to visit Earth. Officially, it's a diplomatic mission to establish better cultural understanding." "Unofficially?" Marcus asked, though he suspected he already knew. "Unofficially, they want to determine if Earth represents a military threat to galactic stability." Sarah looked confused. "Why would we be a threat? We just want to play sports and maybe do some trade with other worlds." "Because if every human on Earth has capabilities like yours, then Earth's population of 8 billion suddenly looks very different from a strategic perspective," Admiral Harrison explained. "Right now, the galaxy sees humanity as a minor species with primitive technology and limited capabilities. But if we're actually a population of beings who can casually defeat their best warriors." "That changes everything," Marcus finished. Admiral Harrison nodded grimly. "The Galactic Council is calling an emergency session to discuss what they're calling the human question. We need to be very careful about how we handle the next few days." "What do you want us to do?" Marcus asked. "For now, continue competing. Act normal, whatever that means for your team. But Sarah..." She turned to face the young woman who had unknowingly started a galactic crisis. I need you to be very careful about how much of your capabilities you display if other species start to see humans as a threat. We could end up at war, Sarah said quietly. I understand. But as she said it, Admiral Harrison noticed something in Sarah's expression. Not fear or concern, but rather the look of someone who was calculating odds and didn't particularly like the results. Sarah, she said carefully, if it came to a conflict, what do you think would happen? Sarah was quiet for a long moment, considering the question seriously. Admiral, she finally said, I think the galaxy would need to find a new hobby that doesn't involve fighting with humans. The way she said it, calm, matter-of-fact, without boasting or threat, somehow made it the most terrifying statement Admiral Harrison had ever heard. Because she had the distinct feeling that Sarah Chen from rural Montana was probably right. Outside their quarters, the first waves of galactic tourists were already booking passage to Earth. Some wanted to see the mysterious Deathworld for themselves. Others wanted to meet more humans like Sarah. None of them had any idea what they were getting into. But they were about to find out. The team was crushing it, until a Deathworld girl appeared unstoppable. 3 days after the match that shook the galaxy, the orbital station around Kepler Prime was busier than it had ever been. Representatives from dozens of galactic powers had arrived for the emergency session of the Galactic Council, each bringing their own theories about what the humans represented. In the station's main conference hall, Ambassador Trillion of the Hegemony stood before a holographic display showing enhanced footage from the championship match. The tall, graceful Altarian's crystalline features reflected the light as she addressed the assembled delegates. Honored representatives, she began, her melodious voice carrying easily through the vast chamber. We have convened this emergency session because of a fundamental shift in our understanding of the species known as humanity. The footage began playing, showing Sarah Chen's casual dismantling of the apex predators. Even knowing what was coming, many of the delegates stirred uneasily as they watched the small human female perform feats that defied their understanding of physics and biology. Initial analysis suggested we were witnessing some form of technological enhancement, Ambassador Trillion continued. However, extensive medical scanning has confirmed that the human-designated Sarah Chen possesses no cybernetic implants, no genetic modifications, and no performance-enhancing substances. A rumble of concerned voices filled the chamber. Ambassador Kexthal of the Draconian Confederation rose from his seat, his scaled hide shifting to the deep red of agitation. Are we supposed to believe that this display of power represents normal human capability? He demanded. No species develops such abilities naturally. It violates everything we understand about biological evolution. That is precisely why we are here, Ambassador Trillion replied smoothly, to determine what humanity actually represents. She activated another display, this one showing data compiled by Galactic Intelligence Services over the past several days. Our investigation has revealed significant gaps in our knowledge of human capabilities. Most of our data has been gathered from humans living on colony worlds, artificial environments with controlled conditions. We have had minimal direct observation of humans living on their homeworld of Earth. Because Earth is a death trap, growled Representative Vorthak of the Ursine Commonwealth. The massive, bear-like alien's fur bristled with agitation. The planet is classified as uninhabitable by 17 different galactic safety organizations. Uninhabitable for most species, corrected Dr. Yathara of the Scientific Consortium. The insected researcher's compound eyes whirred as she focused on the data. But clearly not uninhabitable for humans. In fact, our preliminary analysis suggests that Earth's hostile environment may have driven human evolution in directions we did not anticipate. She brought up a new set of displays showing comparative evolutionary data. Consider the evidence. Humans are the only known sapient species to evolve on a world with such extreme environmental pressures. Most intelligent species develop on worlds with stable climates, predictable ecosystems, and minimal existential threats. Earth has none of these characteristics. Your point, Ambassador Kexthal asked impatiently. My point is that humans evolved under constant selective pressure for survival traits that most species never needed to develop. Enhanced physical capabilities, rapid adaptation, tactical thinking under stress, and what appears to be an unusual form of intuitive physics comprehension. You're suggesting that all humans possess these abilities. Representative Vorthak's voice carried a note of alarm. Not all, Dr. Yathara corrected. Our data suggests significant variation between colony-born and Earth-born humans. Colony-born humans raised in safe environments appear to match our previous assessments of human capabilities, but Earth-born humans. She paused, manipulating the data displays to show genetic analysis results that had arrived just hours earlier. Earth-born humans show active expression of genetic markers associated with enhanced physical performance, accelerated neural processing, and what we can only describe as combat optimization. These markers are present but dormant in colony-born humans. The chamber erupted in excited and alarmed chatter. Several delegates began frantically communicating with their homeworlds through quantum entanglement communicators. Ambassador Trillian called for order. Please, honored representatives, Dr. Yathara has more to report. The scientist continued, her voice taking on an ominous tone. Most concerning is our analysis of Earth's current population. According to human demographic records, approximately 92% of humanity's 8 billion population lives on Earth itself. The implications hit the chamber like a physical blow. If Earth-born humans possessed capabilities like Sarah Chen, and if those 8 billion humans represented a significant portion of the species, we could be looking at 8 billion beings with capabilities that exceed our best warriors, whispered Ambassador Trillian, giving voice to what everyone was thinking. Representative Zalter of the Pacifist Alliance raised a tentacle. Surely you're not suggesting that humans represent a military threat. They've shown no aggressive tendencies toward other species. Haven't they? Ambassador Kexthal's scales shifted to the purple of suspicion. How do we know that this, Sarah Chen, isn't part of some elaborate intelligence operation? Send one human to compete in galactic sports, demonstrate impossible capabilities, and make the rest of the galaxy fear them. Because that would be remarkably sophisticated psychological warfare for a species that achieved interstellar travel only 3 decades ago, Dr. Yathara pointed out. However, the concern about human intentions is not entirely unfounded. She activated another display, this one showing intercepted human communications from Earth. Our monitoring stations have detected a significant increase in communication traffic from Earth following the championship match. Much of it appears to be excitement about their species' success in galactic sports, but some of it. The display showed translated excerpts from human internet forums, social media, and official communications. Comments ranged from proud celebration to increasingly concerning speculation about human capabilities. Some humans are beginning to ask questions, Dr. Yathara continued. Questions about why the galaxy fears them, questions about whether they've been underestimating their own capabilities, questions about what other advantages Earth-born humans might possess. Ambassador Trillian nodded grimly. And that brings us to the most immediate concern. 3 human vessels launched from Earth yesterday. They're calling it a cultural exchange mission, but we have no idea what Earth considers normal diplomatic capability, Representative Vorthak finished. The chamber fell silent as delegates contemplated the situation. For millennia, galactic politics had operated on known quantities. Every species had established capabilities, understood limitations, and predictable behaviors. Humans had been categorized as weak but clever, with primitive technology but interesting potential. Now that entire framework was crumbling. Ambassador Kexthal stood again, his voice carrying the authority of someone speaking for a major military power. I propose we treat this as a potential first contact scenario with an unknown species. Human capabilities may have been grossly underestimated, and we must assume that our previous assessments of their technology and intentions are equally flawed. You want to reclassify humanity from a minor species to a potential major power? Ambassador Trillian asked. I want to reclassify humanity from a known quantity to an unknown quantity, Ambassador Kexthal corrected. Until we have better intelligence about actual human capabilities, we must assume the worst-case scenario. Which is? Ambassador Kexthal's scales shifted to the black of absolute seriousness. That humanity is the most dangerous species the galaxy has ever encountered, and we've been treating them like harmless children for 30 years. Dr. Yathara's compound eyes focused on a new data stream that had just arrived. Honored representatives, I'm receiving reports from the first exploration teams that have visited Earth since the championship match. What kind of reports? Ambassador Trillian asked. The Altarian diplomatic vessel, Harmony's Grace, attempted to establish contact with human authorities in what they believed was Earth's capital city. Attempted. They landed in what humans call New York City and immediately requested emergency evacuation. According to their transmission, they were overwhelmed by the psychic pressure of 8 million humans living in close proximity and unable to cope with the environmental stress of a Deathworld atmosphere. They lasted less than 2 hours on the surface, Dr. Yathara continued. And that was in one of humanity's most technologically advanced urban centers, where the environment is heavily modified for human comfort. Representative Vorthak leaned forward. What about the humans they encountered? According to the Altarian report, the humans were impossibly casual about existing in conditions that should have killed them, and demonstrated physical capabilities that defied reasonable biological limits during normal daily activities. Dr. Yathara paused, reviewing more data. The Altarians specifically mentioned observing human children playing games that involved impacts and acceleration forces that would hospitalize adult Altarians and human adults casually lifting and manipulating objects weighing several hundred kilograms without mechanical assistance. You're telling us that normal human daily life involves capabilities that we consider extraordinary? Ambassador Trillian asked. That appears to be correct. The Altarians also noted that the humans they encountered seemed genuinely surprised by their distress and offered to help by tunning things down for their comfort. Meaning the humans weren't even trying to be impressive. What the Altarians observed was humans being casual and relaxed. The chamber fell into another stunned silence. If human baseline behavior appeared superhuman to galactic observers, what were Earth-born humans capable of when they were actually trying? Ambassador Kexthal's voice was grim when he spoke. How long until those human vessels reach inhabited systems? Dr. Yathara checked her calculations. Approximately 72 hours for the fastest vessel. They appear to be heading for the trade station at Proxima Centauri. Then we have 72 hours to decide how the galaxy is going to handle first contact with actual humans, Ambassador Trillian said. As opposed to the pale shadows of humans we've been dealing with from the colonies, Representative Vorthak added quietly. Ambassador Kexthal stood and addressed the full chamber. Honored representatives, I move that we implement Protocol 7 immediately. A wave of shocked gasps swept through the chamber. Protocol 7 was reserved for potential galactic-level threats. It had only been invoked twice in recorded history. You want to treat humanity as a potential existential threat to galactic civilization? Ambassador Trillian asked. I want to treat humanity as what they may actually be, Ambassador Kexthal replied. 8 billion unknowns from a Deathworld with capabilities we don't understand and intentions we can't predict. But they seem friendly, Representative Zalter protested weakly. So did the Devourer swarms, Ambassador Kexthal reminded him. Right up until they ate the Andromeda spiral. Dr. Yathara's voice cut through the rising arguments. Honored representatives, there's something else you need to know. The chamber quieted to hear her. Our deep space monitors have detected increased activity from Earth's surface. It appears that humans are launching additional vessels, many additional vessels. How many? Ambassador Trillian asked, though she dreaded the answer. Current count is 47 ships and rising. All appear to be heading for different destinations throughout galactic space. Ambassador Kexthal's scales went pure white with fear. They're not sending diplomats, they're sending scouts. Or, Dr. Yathara said quietly, they're sending more humans like Sarah Chen to see what the rest of the galaxy can do. The thought sent chills through every delegate present, because none of them had any idea what they were going to do when the humans arrived. The team was crushing it, until a Deathworld girl appeared unstoppable. The trade station at Proxima Centauri had seen its share of unusual visitors over the decades, but nothing had prepared Station Administrator Keltash for the arrival of the human vessel, Terra Explorer. The sleek ship had docked with practiced efficiency, despite using technology that appeared primitive by galactic standards. Now, 3 hours later, Keltash stood in his office watching security footage with a mixture of fascination and growing alarm. The humans had been nothing but polite and friendly since their arrival, but their mere presence was causing unprecedented disruptions throughout the station. "Sir," his assistant Pivrin entered nervously, his 4 eyes darting between the screens and the door. "The Centaurian delegation is demanding immediate evacuation. They're claiming the humans are giving off threatening psychic emanations." Keltash sighed, his chitinous exoskeleton clicking softly. As a member of the Hive Collective, he was naturally resistant to psychic influences, which was probably why he was one of the few beings on the station who could think clearly around the humans. "What about the others?" "The Altarians have locked themselves in their quarters and refuse to come out. The Draconians are. Well, their delegation leader challenged the human captain to single combat about an hour ago. And the human politely declined and offered to arm wrestle instead. Ambassador Kexthulan is currently unconscious in the medical bay after the contest." Keltash reviewed the footage of that particular incident. The human captain, a woman named Elena Vasquez, had seemed genuinely concerned about hurting the massive draconian warrior. She had suggested they use a specialized table designed to handle the strength of various species. The contest had lasted approximately 3 seconds. "Sir, there's more," Pivrin continued. "The humans have been exploring the station. They keep asking questions about how things work, but the questions are unusual. They keep asking about safety margins. How much stress can the station handle? What are the emergency protocols? How many people can be evacuated at once? They seem very concerned about whether the station is adequately protected." Keltash pulled up more security footage, watching the 3 humans move through the station's commercial areas. Captain Vasquez led the group with easy confidence, while her companions, a man named Jim Morrison and a woman named Chen Li, examined everything with obvious interest. What was disturbing was how other species reacted to them. Beings who had never met humans before were instinctively backing away, giving the humans a wide berth without consciously realizing why. It was as if every survival instinct developed over millions of years of evolution was screaming warnings about these deceptively friendly primates. "Sir," Pivrin's voice carried a note of concern, "the humans are requesting a meeting with you. They say they have some questions about galactic trade regulations." "Send them up," Keltash decided. As a Hive Collective administrator, his duty was to facilitate peaceful contact between species, even if those species happened to be walking apex predators from a Deathworld. 20 minutes later, the 3 humans entered his office with the kind of casual confidence that most beings only displayed in their own territory. Captain Vasquez smiled warmly as she extended her hand in what Keltash had learned was a human greeting gesture. "Thank you for seeing us, Administrator Keltash. I'm Captain Elena Vasquez, and these are my colleagues Jim Morrison and Chen Li." Keltash carefully shook the offered hand, nodding that Captain Vasquez's grip was precisely calibrated to avoid crushing his more delicate anatomy. The fact that she had to consciously hold back that much strength was unsettling. "Please be seated," he gestured to chairs that had been quickly reconfigured to accommodate human physiology. "How may I assist you?" Chen Li, who appeared to be the group's scientist, activated a small device that projected holographic displays. "We're trying to understand galactic trade networks, specifically how goods and resources move between systems and what happens when there are disruptions." "Disruptions? Natural disasters, political conflicts, transportation failures," Jim Morrison clarified. He had the bearing of someone with military experience, though his manner was relaxed and friendly. "We're particularly interested in emergency response protocols." "You're concerned about system-wide emergencies?" Keltash asked. "We're concerned about being prepared," Captain Vasquez replied. "One thing we've learned about living on Earth is that emergencies happen whether you're ready for them or not. The best approach is to plan ahead." Chen Li manipulated her displays to show shipping lane data. "We've been analyzing the trade routes, and we've noticed some potential vulnerabilities, single points of failure that could disrupt commerce across multiple sectors." She highlighted several critical junction points in the galactic trade network. For instance, if something happened to the main shipping hub at Vega Prime, 17 systems would be cut off from medical supplies within a week. Keltash stared at the analysis. It had taken Chen Li less than 3 days to identify weaknesses in trade networks that had taken galactic economists decades to develop. This is very thorough. Basic risk assessment, Jim Morrison said with a shrug. We do this kind of analysis for everything back home. Weather patterns, supply chains, infrastructure vulnerabilities. You have to when you live somewhere that's actively trying to kill you. But these aren't just Earth systems, Keltash pointed out. These are galactic trade networks spanning hundreds of species and thousands of worlds. Same principles apply, Captain Vasquez said. Distributed systems with interdependent components. The scale is different, but the fundamental concepts are identical. Chen Li brought up another display. We've also been looking at your emergency response protocols. We have some suggestions for improvements. Improvements? Your current evacuation plans assume that beings in danger will behave rationally and follow instructions, she explained. But panic response in crisis situations is remarkably consistent across species. You need to account for crowd dynamics, communication failures, and the tendency for authority structures to break down under stress. She showed him modified evacuation routes and communication protocols that would be more effective during actual emergencies. The improvements were logical, practical, and would probably save thousands of lives if implemented. How do you know so much about crisis management? Keltash asked. We're from Earth, Captain Vasquez said, as if that explained everything. Hurricanes, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, forest fires, floods, blizzards, tornadoes. Our planet is basically one continuous emergency punctuated by brief periods of relative calm. So humans develop expertise in emergency response out of necessity, Jim Morrison added. It's not a specialty field for us, it's basic life skills. Keltash was beginning to understand why the galactic powers were so concerned about humanity. These weren't just physically superior beings. They were beings who had been shaped by an environment that demanded excellence in survival skills, tactical thinking, and crisis management. There's something else we'd like to discuss, Chen Li said. We've been monitoring communication traffic since we arrived, and we're detecting elevated stress levels in the local population. You're monitoring our communications? Keltash asked, alarmed. No, Captain Vasquez clarified quickly. We're monitoring stress indicators in the station's environmental systems. Elevated heart rates, irregular breathing patterns, increased adrenaline production. The station's life support systems track this data to maintain optimal conditions. Our presence is making people nervous, Jim Morrison said bluntly. We'd like to understand why so we can address the problem. Keltash considered his response carefully. Many species are unfamiliar with humans. Your capabilities appear to exceed our previous assessments. You mean because of what Sarah did in the championship match? Captain Vasquez asked. Among other things, your species has been classified as having specific limitations that recent observations suggest may be inaccurate. Chen Li and Jim Morrison exchanged glances. What kind of limitations? Chen Li asked. Physical strength, reflexive response times, cognitive processing speed, environmental adaptation. The data we have on humans suggests much more restricted capabilities than what we're observing. Oh, that makes sense, Captain Vasquez said with sudden understanding. Most of your data comes from studying colony-born humans, right? Yes, that's correct. Well, there's your problem, she said with a smile. Colony kids are soft. Keltash's translator struggled with the colloquial term, soft. Raised in safe environments, Jim Morrison explained. Controlled gravity, perfect climate, no predators, no natural disasters. They never had to develop the same survival skills as Earth-born humans. Are you saying that Earth-born humans possess different capabilities than colony-born humans? Keltash asked. We're saying that Earth forces you to live up to your potential or die, Chen Li replied. Colony worlds let you coast. Captain Vasquez leaned forward. Administrator Keltash, may I ask you something? What do you know about human evolution? The basic facts from galactic databases. Your species evolved on Earth approximately 200,000 years ago and achieved sapience through tool use and social cooperation. That's accurate but incomplete, she said. What the databases don't mention is that humans survived multiple extinction events. Ice ages, supervolcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, global climate shifts. We didn't just evolve on a death world. We evolved to survive on a death world that kept getting worse. Jim Morrison nodded. Every major crisis in Earth's history selected for humans who were stronger, faster, smarter, and more adaptable. We're the descendants of beings who survived when almost everything else died. And now you're saying that this evolutionary pressure is still active on Earth? Keltash asked. Earth hasn't gotten any safer, Chen Li pointed out. If anything, it's gotten more dangerous as human civilization has become more complex. Natural disasters, industrial accidents, environmental hazards, transportation risks. Earthborn humans still have to deal with constant existential threats. Keltash was beginning to see the scope of the galactic intelligence failure. Every assessment of human capabilities had been based on studying humans who had been removed from the evolutionary pressures that shaped their species. So when beings like Sarah Chen compete in galactic sports, he began. You're seeing what humans are actually capable of when we're not being protected from our own environment, Captain Vasquez finished. Sarah isn't unusual for an Earthborn human, she's typical. The implications were staggering. If Sarah Chen represented normal human capability, then Earth's population of 8 billion represented something unprecedented in galactic history. Administrator Keltash, Captain Vasquez said gently, I think we need to have a serious conversation about humanity's place in galactic civilization. Because based on what we're seeing, I don't think the galaxy really understands what it's dealing with. Keltash's communicator buzzed with an emergency priority message. As he read it, his exoskeleton paled to the color of shock. What is it? Jim Morrison asked, recognizing the signs of distress. 47 more human vessels have been detected entering galactic space, Keltash said quietly. The Galactic Council has declared a state of emergency and activated Protocol 7. What's Protocol 7? Chen Li asked. Keltash looked at the three humans sitting calmly in his office. Beings who could apparently tear apart his station with their bare hands and were instead politely discussing trade regulations. It's the protocol for potential existential threats to galactic civilization, he said. Captain Vasquez sighed. Well, that's unfortunate. I was really hoping we could do this the easy way. The team was crushing it, until a Deathworld girl appeared unstoppable. 6 months later, the Galactic Council headquarters on Kepler Prime had been transformed into something resembling a combination diplomatic center and crisis management facility. What had begun as an emergency session about humanity had evolved into ongoing negotiations that were reshaping the entire structure of galactic civilization. Ambassador Trillian stood before the Central Assembly Hall, but the gathering was very different from the panicked emergency meeting that had occurred half a year earlier. Representatives from 47 different species sat alongside an equal number of human delegates, working through the complex process of integrating humanity into galactic society as a major power rather than a minor curiosity. The Human Integration Accords have been finalized, Ambassador Trillian announced. All parties have agreed to the new framework for interspecies cooperation. At a table near the front of the hall, Sarah Chen sat between Captain Alina Vasquez and Admiral Janet Harrison. Sarah had become something of a celebrity throughout the galaxy, though she still seemed mildly bewildered by all the attention. She was currently reading what appeared to be a technical manual on quantum engineering while half listening to the proceedings. The key provisions are as follows, Ambassador Trillian continued. First, humanity is recognized as a Class 7 species with full major power status in galactic affairs. This had been one of the most contentious points in the negotiations. Class 7 status was reserved for species with capabilities that could significantly impact galactic stability. Only 4 species had previously held that classification. Second, Earth is recognized as a sovereign world with absolute territorial integrity. No galactic authority may interfere with internal Earth affairs or attempt to establish monitoring stations in the Sol system without explicit human consent. This provision had been added after several galactic powers had suggested that Earth might need protective oversight to prevent humans from developing technologies that could threaten galactic security. The humans had politely but firmly rejected any form of external supervision. Third, all previous assessments of human capabilities are declared null and void. New baseline measurements will be established based on comprehensive studies of Earth-born human populations. Dr. Yathara, who had spent the last 6 months conducting those studies, activated a holographic display showing the revised data. The numbers were sobering. Average Earth-born human strength was approximately 3 times greater than previously calculated. Reflexive response times were faster than most combat-trained galactic soldiers. Cognitive processing speeds, particularly in crisis situations, exceeded the measurements for several species known for their intelligence. Fourth, humans are granted immediate access to all galactic trade networks, scientific databases, and cultural exchange programs, with reciprocal access to Earth-based resources and knowledge. This had turned out to be more valuable than anyone expected. Human approaches to engineering, crisis management, and problem-solving had already led to improvements in everything from starship design to disaster response protocols. And fifth, Ambassador Trillian continued with something resembling a smile, competitive sports leagues will be restructured to account for species-specific advantages. The Human Championship League has been established as a separate division. This last point had become necessary after human teams had begun dominating every sport they entered. Sarah's victory over the apex predators had been just the beginning. Within 3 months, human athletes were holding championship titles in 17 different galactic sports, usually by margins that made competition pointless for other species. At the human table, Captain Vasquez leaned over to Sarah. "How does it feel to have started all this?" Sarah looked up from her technical manual. "I still don't understand what the big deal is. I just wanted to play sports and meet aliens." "Well, you definitely met aliens," Admiral Harrison said dryly, "and convinced them that humanity might accidentally conquer the galaxy if we weren't careful." "That's not fair," Sarah protested. "We're not trying to conquer anybody, we just want to help." And that, Admiral Harrison reflected, was probably what made humans so terrifying to the rest of the galaxy. Most species that developed overwhelming capabilities also developed aggressive tendencies to match. Humans had somehow evolved to be individually powerful enough to dominate most other species while remaining fundamentally cooperative and altruistic. It was a combination that other galactic powers simply didn't know how to handle. Ambassador Kexthal of the Draconian Confederation rose from his seat. Over the past months, he had become one of humanity's strongest allies, largely because humans were the only species that treated Draconians as equals in physical contests rather than as impossibly strong monsters. "I would like to propose a modification to the Accords," he announced. "The Draconian Confederation wishes to establish a formal military alliance with humanity." This caused a stir throughout the hall. Military alliances between major powers were serious diplomatic commitments. "The nature of this alliance?" Ambassador Trillian asked. "Joint training exercises, shared tactical knowledge, and mutual defense agreements," Ambassador Kexthal replied. "The Draconians have learned much from human approaches to combat strategy, and we believe humans could benefit from our experience with large-scale military operations." What he didn't say, but everyone understood, was that an alliance between the galaxy's 2 most physically powerful species would create a military bloc that could guarantee peace simply by existing. Sarah raised her hand like a student in a classroom. Excuse me, could I say something?" Ambassador Trillian nodded, curious about what the human who had started everything might have to contribute. "I think everyone is overthinking this," Sarah said, standing up. "You're all worried about humans being too powerful or too dangerous, and you're creating all these complicated agreements to manage us. But the thing is, we don't want to be managed, and we don't want to manage anyone else." She activated her own holographic display, showing a simple diagram that looked like a network map. "Look, here's how we see it. The galaxy is basically a big neighborhood, with a new family that just moved in, and everyone is nervous because they heard we're really strong and might cause trouble. But all we want is to be good neighbors." She highlighted different nodes in the network. "The Altarians are really good at art and philosophy. The Draconians are amazing warriors. The scientific consortium knows more about physics than we could learn in 1,000 years. The Trade Federation understands economics in ways we're just beginning to grasp." Your point, Ambassador Kexthal asked. My point is that everyone has something valuable to contribute. Humans are good at surviving in dangerous environments and solving problems under pressure. That's useful, but it's not the only thing that matters. Sarah's display shifted to show resource flows and information exchanges. What if, instead of worrying about who's too powerful or too dangerous, we focus on how everyone can help everyone else? The galaxy has problems that need solving: natural disasters, resource shortages, territorial disputes, technological challenges. Humans are good at dealing with problems. Let us help. Dr. Yathara's compound eyes whirred as she processed this suggestion. You're proposing a mutual aid framework rather than a traditional power balance structure. I'm proposing that we stop thinking about this as a zero-sum game, Sarah replied. Just because humans are physically strong doesn't mean we want to dominate anyone. We want to contribute. There's a difference. Representative Vorthak of the Ursine Commonwealth stood up. The human approach has merit. The past 6 months have demonstrated that human involvement in galactic affairs has been uniformly beneficial. Disaster response times have improved, safety protocols have been enhanced, and several previously unsolvable engineering problems have been resolved. Because humans bring a different perspective, Captain Vasquez added. We approach problems differently because we evolved in an environment that demanded creative solutions to existential threats. Ambassador Trillian considered the proposal. You're suggesting that humanity's role in galactic society should be as problem solvers rather than as a dominant military power. We're suggesting that humanity's role should be whatever is most helpful, Sarah said simply. If that means helping with disasters, great. If it means sharing our technology, wonderful. If it means occasionally arm-wrestling draconians to settle disputes without anyone getting hurt, we're happy to do that too. The chamber erupted in what could generously be called laughter, though it sounded more like a collection of noises from a zoo. Ambassador Kexthal's scales shifted to the gold of amusement. I can confirm that arm-wrestling humans is far more entertaining than traditional draconian combat, and significantly less likely to result in permanent injuries. So here's what I propose, Sarah continued. Instead of trying to control or manage humanity, why don't you just ask us for help when you need it? We'll do our best to be useful, and if we ever do something wrong, just let us know and we'll fix it. The simplicity of the proposal was almost shocking after months of complex diplomatic negotiations. You're essentially offering humanity as a galaxy-wide emergency response service, Dr. Yathara observed. We're offering humanity as neighbors, Sarah corrected. Good neighbors who happen to be really strong and don't mind helping out when things get difficult. Ambassador Trillian looked around the chamber, reading the expressions and energy signatures of the various delegates. The proposal was radical in its simplicity, but it addressed the fundamental concern that had driven the entire crisis: what to do with a species too powerful to ignore and too benevolent to oppose. All in favor of modifying the human integration, accords to include the mutual aid framework proposed by Representative Chen. The vote was unanimous. As delegates began filing out of the chamber to begin implementing the new agreements, Sarah returned to her technical manual. Admiral Harrison watched her with a mixture of pride and bewilderment. Sarah, she said, do you realize that you just restructured galactic civilization? Did I? Sarah looked up with genuine surprise. I thought I was just suggesting that we all be nice to each other. That, Captain Vasquez said with a grin, is probably the most terrifying thing about humans from the galaxy's perspective. We accidentally improve everything we touch, and we're usually not even trying. Well, Sarah said, returning to her reading, if being nice accidentally improves things, that seems like a pretty good problem to have. Outside the council chambers, representatives from 47 species began the process of contacting their homeworlds with news of the new galactic order. An order that would be shaped not by fear or dominance, but by a simple human concept: being good neighbors. It wasn't what anyone had expected when Sarah Chen first stepped into that arena 6 months ago. But as the galaxy was discovering, expectations were always the first casualty when humans got involved. And somehow, that was turning out to be exactly what the galaxy needed.